Beautiful blooms which are ethically sourced. This is an interesting claim for a retailer to make. On the one hand, it tells us that the retailer believes that the consumer wants to feel reassured that their purchase is indeed ethical. On the other hand, it challenges us to ask questions about ethical sourcing in cut flower supply chains. In this short video, we will consider some of the aspects of ethics and sustainability that arise in cut flower supply chains, and we will look in more detail at how the concept of sustainability plays out in one specific cut flower supply chain in South Africa. But first, we will hand over to Professor Tony Binns, who will briefly outline the economics of the UK cut flower market.
The cut flower market has expanded immensely in the last few years. The figure is something like £1.8 billion of cut flowers in the UK, so it's a big sale. And a lot of this is coming directly from the producing countries rather than from the Dutch auction markets as it was in the past. So this is really big business. With this massive increase in the cut flower sales, something like 60% of cut flowers are now sold in supermarkets and about 30% sold in specialist florists. Tesco's supermarkets in the UK has a very significant 22% of the market.
The cut flower industry has been subject to many controversies in recent years. Production has spread across the globe, with countries such as Kenya and Colombia supplying huge quantities of flowers to markets including the UK. Debates have raged about the carbon footprint of imported flowers versus that of greenhouse production in Northern Europe. Water depletion has also hit the headlines. For example, in 2009, The Ecologist reported that since the floriculture industry had moved in, Lake Naivasha in Kenya has shrunk to half its original size. More broadly, the industry has been criticised for its usage of chemicals and for labour rights abuses. However, there are some initiatives within the floriculture industry which seek to ensure decent ethical standards. These include international schemes such as Fair Trade and Fair Flowers, Fair Plants, and national level initiatives such as the Kenyan Flower Council. We are now going to look at a case study of wild flowers harvested from the Cape Floristic region in South Africa. This is a good example for helping us think through different aspects of sustainability.
The Cape Floristic region is situated in the southernmost area of Africa, and what is notable about this region is that it is home to around 9,000 species of plant, of which 69%, i.e. around 6,500, are endemic just to this region. It is actually the most diverse of all the world's floristic regions, and as such is known as a biodiversity hotspot.
The indigenous vegetation in the Cape Floristic region is known as fynbos, meaning fine-leaved bush. Here we see a typical fynbos landscape in which wildflower harvesters are working. Species of fynbos that are harvested include the iconic Protea compacta, Leucospermum cordifolium, known popularly as the pincushion, Leucodendron meridianum, and Syncarpa vestita.
Here is a bouquet of Cape Flora flowers. This one I've purchased from a local shop, a spa shop, just down the road here in Hermanus. Now, this bouquet, although it is for the local market, is very typically designed, and we find very similar ones in the UK and other parts of the world. So, what are the key components of one of these bouquets? Well, bouquets will always have a focal flower, which is the centerpiece of the bouquet. In this case, it's a Protea. Okay, nice pink flower, and there's two of those. And then we have the very distinctive cone bushes, okay, like this. And then we find a number of green fillers, okay, which are used to set off the focal flowers. Now, what is interesting here is in this particular bouquet is we also find a piece of what I believe to be eucalyptus, which is actually alien invasive vegetation, which many people don't think should even be in the fynbos biome for a number of reasons. But the rest of the bouquet is indigenous, although we need to note that it's very likely that the proteas will actually have been grown in plantations, and they may even be hybrids. Now, obviously, there's a price difference for the harvesters when they are actually picking these different flowers, because the focal flowers are worth a lot more money than the fillers. For example, a focal might fetch anywhere between 1 and 3 rand per stem, whereas these fillers may be around 25 to 35 cents, depending on which particular species one is talking about. In total, there are around 20 stems in this particular bouquet, and this bouquet will have been sold on by the producer to the shop for around 20 rand, which is around at the moment £1.
So how does the supply chain operate for bouquets such as this? In this case, a lady called Carol, sitting at the back in this clip, places an order with a team of flower harvesters who will then go out and pick the wild flowers. The focal flowers are ordered from a grower of cultivated flowers. The flowers are delivered to Carol. Here we can see Carol and her worker Esme cleaning the flowers and putting them into bouquets ready for distribution to local markets, including the spa shop, a local market trader and a local florist. As you can see, this is all quite an informal operation just taking place in Carol's backyard. Bouquets for export are generally prepared in more formal settings. Here we can see Fame Bloom's state-of-the-art pack shed, which sends hundreds of thousands of Cape Flora bouquets to the UK, especially Marks and Spencer's. And here we have a lower tech operation which supplies into Waitrose.
Conservationists have raised concerns about the sustainability of wildflower harvesting, because they've been concerned that if there too much harvesting occurs or in the wrong ways, that actually the biodiversity will be lost and that some species may be lost from the landscape altogether. So an organisation called the Flower Valley Conservation Trust was set up, and with support from various global donors they initiated the Sustainable Harvesting Programme, and this supports harvesters in learning how to harvest in ways which will actually protect the species from over-harvesting, and therefore ensure that there is a seed bank available so that when the next fire sweeps through the area, that in fact the fynbos will recover. And this is obviously important from a biodiversity perspective. It's also important for the actual future of the industry, because ultimately if the flowers do not grow in abundance, then there'll be nothing left to pick and sell, which would cause the loss of a great many jobs.
The Sustainable Harvesting Programme includes a number of different aspects, including a code of best practice for harvesting. This provides guidelines on how to pick flowers in an eco-friendly way, so that sufficient seeds are left for regrowth. It sets out minimum labour standards for workers and outlines the various environmental and labour laws that need to be adhered to. Learning tools have been created to train harvesters, including field guidebooks and training videos. By way of example, here is a subtitled training video with audio in a local language, which explains to harvesters how they should cut single-stemmed plants in a way that will ensure that the plant will survive.
Hierdie plant is Phenicoma prolifera. Phenicoma is 'n enkelstammige plant. As 'n mens 'n enkelstam plant oes, is dit baie belangrik om 'n draer op die plant agter te los. Die verkeerde manier om hierdie plant te oes sal wees as ek hom daar sny, as ek hom hier onder sny. Die regte manier om hom te oes sal wees as ek hom hier rond sny. Jy kan sien daar so is dit draer en dit gaan weer uitloop. Dit gaan die volgende uitloopsels wees.
So what impact is the Sustainable Harvesting Programme having? The regulatory agency Cape Nature now require that harvesters commit to the Sustainable Harvesting Programme in the way that they practice their work. The Sustainable Harvesting Programme is supported by some buyers within the Cape Flora bouquet market now as well. This support represents commitment to embark on a journey, as retailers tend to phrase it, towards the goals of the Sustainable Harvesting Programme. In practice, there is a long way to go before claims can be made that the industry is fully sustainable in environmental and social terms. There are definitely areas of good practice within fynbos supply chains, but there are also areas that require considerable improvement. One of the biggest challenges faced by the industry is the relentless pressure imposed by retailers to keep prices down. In fact, prices paid per stem to suppliers have hardly changed in the last decade. Perhaps the biggest success of the SHP has been to get people in the industry talking and thinking about sustainability. And also in a country of high unemployment, the creation and maintenance of jobs is a hugely significant impact. We should also remember that wild feignboss requires no chemical inputs and actually improves local water budgets. The feignboss industry is also undertaking trials to transport bouquets by sea freight rather than air freight, which will substantially reduce the carbon footprint. The aim of this video is not to define which flowers are ethical and sustainable and which are not. Rather, the aim has been to demonstrate that these concepts are complex with many dimensions. If we are concerned about ethics, then we need to balance up a whole load of factors before making our choices, and there is usually a lack of reliable information to guide us in our decision making. However, it is important that consumers do demonstrate their concerns to retailers, whether by buying flowers with an ethical label or not buying flowers that are just too cheap to be true. We can also support campaigns to promote more ethical behaviour. Retailers do respond to consumer demands and behaviours, and if we demand ever higher standards of ethical conduct and sustainable practices, then retailers will have to listen, as their bottom line is at stake.